And welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett and Kent Myers, we're glad you're taking time out of your day to join us. Thank you for doing so. And today we're going to be talking about weight loss on The Verdict.
A very important topic, topic Oklahoma ought to have a particular interest in because we consistently seem to get poor grades nationally for the fitness and weight health, if you will, of our residents. And there's an awful lot going on to try to remedy that, a lot of which you're directly involved in.
Well, as you say, a lot of people are working on this. We do have a program in Oklahoma City going. There's a lot of statewide initiatives as well. Zora Brown is our guest today. She works for Integris, but she has a lifelong history of supporting health issues, specifically women's health issues, and she's on the forefront of this obesity issue, and we'll be visiting with her today. It's coming up next. It's The Verdict. We'll be right back.
In driving rain, blistering heat, and bitter cold, 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, Chesapeake drills non-stop for natural gas on American soil. Chesapeake drills more new gas wells than anyone else, and from those wells collects the most drilling information and acquires more 3D seismic images, leveraging every efficiency to improve the odds of finding more natural gas every day with every well we drill. The better job we do of discovering bigger reserves of clean-burning American natural gas, the greater the prosperity of our nearby communities, our state, and our nation. And as long as there are more gas reserves to be found here in the U.S., we will never rest. Chesapeake. Natural gas wins the day.
And welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers, and Kent's going to introduce today's guest.
Really pleased today to have Zora Brown with us for her first visit to The Verdict. Zora is the Director of Health and Cultural Affairs for Integris Health, works with Stanley Hupfeld out there, assisting his work. She's a native of Oklahoma City. She attended Oklahoma State University, and for the past 37 years or so, she's been a resident of the District of Columbia, but we're really glad to welcome her back to Oklahoma City, to her home, to her roots. She has worked while in Washington at a number of places. I'll just mention a few. The Federal Communications Commission, the White House, U.S. House of Representatives. She's been active with the National Cancer Institute. And she's here today to talk to us about an exciting program she's instituted with others here in Oklahoma City. Zora, welcome.
Thank you.
We're glad you're here.
Tell us about your job at Integris. What do you do there?
Oh, I do a number of things at Integris. First of all, it's a fun job. And I direct the Health and Cultural Affairs program, which means that I am out in the community ensuring that our community understands what the health issues are, what the burdens of disease are, and how we can prevent those diseases. I also serve as special assistant to our CEO, Stanley Hupfeld. In that relationship, I'm responsible for our Business Health Leadership Institute, making sure that he is abreast of what's happening on the national scene in terms of healthcare.
Do you spend most of your time here in Oklahoma City, or do you travel a lot?
I'd like to spend more time in Oklahoma City. Actually, I travel quite a bit. I just came back from Colorado Springs and I'm on my way to Orlando, Florida, by way of Jacksonville. So I travel quite a bit, but when I'm home, I thoroughly enjoy it.
And the travel is for what reasons?
The travel is, again, to make sure that we have a national presence in those arenas where we can make a difference and where we have an impact upon what's happening at Integris and in Oklahoma.
And you've recently undergone a weight loss initiative using a lot of the churches and in cooperation with This City is going on a diet program that we've got going down at City Hall. So tell us about the specific effort with the churches to try and use that as a conduit to lose weight.
Well, the goal of our program is to reduce the chronic disease burden in the state of Oklahoma. We know that Oklahoma suffers disproportionately, and particularly African Americans, from those chronic diseases like diabetes, heart disease, cancer, and stroke. So we know obesity plays a big role in that. Our goal is to get the churches involved just as a conduit for just opening the conversation. And quite frankly, I've been quite impressed with the number of churches that have said, we want to do it, and they weighed in, and we're beginning to get the results of the weight loss, and we will add those to the weight loss in Oklahoma City.
So it seems as if you can do this as a group, if people can have some sort of accountability and do this with people they know and love, it seems like it's an asset to making it successful.
Absolutely. We have some churches that have started walking teams, others that have started aerobics programs, cooking classes, things of that nature. So when you do have that camaraderie that support group that you need to help you go forward with the challenge, I think we'll see great results. And we're beginning to see just the discussion is one of the best things that I think can happen.
Demographically, when you look at obesity, what jumps out at you? What do you see that just doesn't make sense of the issue?
What doesn't make sense to me is that we are seeing more African Americans who are being diagnosed with the chronic diseases disproportionately to any other population. I don't understand that. I don't understand it basically from an economic perspective. So we do know that there's something happening that is not equating to a good health. We drive a lot in the city. I drive more than I ever have in my entire life in the 2 years that I've been back in Oklahoma City. So we've got to understand how we can do some things to increase the exercise and the way that citizens in this country in this state move around.
I was intrigued with the idea of getting the churches involved in this kind of a certainly laudatory activity. Mick and I talked about it and thought this would be a great topic to talk about on our show in conjunction with the city's mayor's challenge on weight loss. But was it your idea to get the churches involved, and if so, how did you come up with that?
Actually, Ms. Tupfeld asked me to convene an African American Health Summit using the churches. In the African American community, the church is the most trusted institution. So we know that if you can go to the church, if you can get the churches to buy in, then you can pretty much penetrate the community. And that's exactly what we did. We did a number of things, meeting with the National Baptist Convention, the Progressive Baptist Convention, many of the church leaders to get them to buy in first. And then we convened an African American Health Summit at Douglas High School in this past October. And churches from all across the state came together. And at the conclusion, we challenged them to lose weight.
Is there a lack of information from the general populace about what causes obesity, or why is it that some sort of meetings can be successful?
I think there's conflicting information about what causes obesity. There's also the notion that the healthier, the better you're are able to eat, the healthier you're going to be. And for poor communities, it's always been, if you were a little bit overweight, that meant you were a little bit more prosperous. So we've got to move away from some of those notions of relating eating to well-being.
Well, and I guess we're deluged with fast food ads on television, radio, and elsewhere, and those can be pretty appealing.
Absolutely.
And yet I suspect, this is not meant to be an indictment of the fast food restaurant. Some of those meals aren't quite as healthy as they might otherwise be.
No, they aren't. And we think that the fast food industry is looking at that, and they do recognize that they need to improve the kinds of things that they offer to the public. And I think if you offer a healthier fare, that people are going to be willing to buy it. So I think that everybody's beginning to understand that we've got some challenges here.
There's another question I wanted to ask you, I thought about before the show. You are a graduate of Douglas High School.
I am.
And when you got back into these churches in Oklahoma City, did you see a bunch of familiar faces that you hadn't seen for a while?
I did, and we were all a little bit plumper than we should have been. And I think that's also been an entree for me, to be able to come back home and reconnect with my friends, with former classmates and people that I've known all of my life. So getting this program off the ground was not that much of a challenge because I knew most of the people in place, including some of the ministers. So
You talked earlier about that obesity can lead to other problems, other diseases. Give us a kind of a list of those most often associated with obesity.
diabetes, right up there, number one, cancer, stroke, heart disease. We know that all of those things, obesity is directly attributable to the manifestation of many of those diseases. That's our primary goal, is to reduce the burden of chronic disease. When one is dealing with diabetes, the cost and just the cost in time, money, the quality of life that you sacrifice is really, really important to us to make sure that we can begin to get people to live a better quality life and prevent those diseases.
When Stanley Hupfeld was on a while back on our show, he was on talking about the Fit Kids Coalition.
Yes.
In your connection with the churches, are the children of the church also becoming involved?
Absolutely, absolutely. Again, we're seeing fatter children than we've ever seen before. And a lot of that has to do with, again, the lack of physical education in schools, the rigor that we have seen. Children now ride the bus. When I went to school, I walked to school. I don't think I ever been on a school bus. So we need to make sure that we can reincorporate some of those natural things that children do that will keep them healthier as well.
Let's pick up there when we get back. We're visiting with Zora Brown of Integris. We're talking about obesity and the state of Oklahoma and what we can do about it. We'll be right back.
Okiwani is an Indian name for a place where children play. When we obtained the camp, we found a lot of oil debris left in the woods. We saw a commercial about how the oil and natural gas industry cleans up old oil well sites. We called the OERB and they agreed to remove tons of concrete and steel. It didn't cost us a thing. Thousands of children have left their footprints on this land. Thanks to the oil and gas industry, they will for a long time to come.
Wilsey, Meyer, Eatman, Tate. We're accountants. We do taxes, business valuations, estate planning, and consulting. And we're right here in Oklahoma, working with the owners of small and medium-sized businesses. Steve Wilsey and Stuart Meyer have the resources and the experience. Wilsey, Meyer, Eatman, Tate in Oklahoma City and Tulsa.
Welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett and Kent Myers. As always, Zora Brown with Integris is our guest. We're talking about weight loss, health, obesity, and this is a state project that you and Integris are working on. You've talked a little bit about Oklahoma City. What's going on in the rest of the state, and how do you coordinate such a large project?
Well, we have a health line at Integris Health, and we have coordinators within each church who will then connect with our health line, and all they have to do is call that line, and they could either go on computer and just plug in the information, and each month we get to tally that information. So it's an easy process. We have a lot of technology that we're incorporating here, but each church has designated a coordinator who has gotten a team together and is responsible for the weigh-in each month and for coordinating the
So if there's someone watching who's a member of a church and would like to get their church involved, it's just simply a matter of contacting you at Integris?
Contacting me at Integris, and we will get them the information that's necessary to submit all of their data to us.
And we'll give that website to contact you at the end of the show.
Great.
We air also in Tulsa on this show,
Yes.
and I suppose you probably have some involvement with Tulsa churches as well.
We do, and I must tell you, I cannot remember the names of the churches in Tulsa, but we did have churches from Tulsa and they actually brought buses The church buses came down from Tulsa to attend the program from Idabel. And in areas where we have our facilities, we also had churches that came from those areas as well. So it is a statewide activity, and we're quite proud of the fact that we were able to generate this interest.
How many churches do you have?
I really cannot tell you. I know that we have over 20, so would love to have many, many more. We had more than 800 participants at our African American Health Summit, so we would like to have, representative numbers of those folks involved in the weight loss challenge.
Integris does a great job of getting involved in the wellness aspect of
Yes.
healthcare. What is the trend in that? You've been watching healthcare for a long, long time. Are we really starting to turn the tables where people start to spend more care and dollars, and our insurance companies are starting to recognize that wellness is probably more important than fighting acute illnesses?
Well, it was very difficult to get the insurance companies to understand that prevention was actually going to save them more money than actually paying for someone who has been diagnosed with a catastrophic disease. So we're now beginning to see every entity involved in prevention and in wellness, because we know that we need to have a productive community and productive society, and you can't do that with a bunch of sick people.
Well, it strikes me that Integris has a very large footprint on the prevention side. I mean, we can tick off Stanley Hupfeld and the Fit Kids Coalition and other things that he does. Marianne Bowman's on our show twice a year, once always talking about the Women's Health Summit. We see commercials with Dr. John Muchmore talking about some activities he's gotten in relation to diabetes.
Right.
Integris has got a big imprint in this community on prevention. Where does that emanate from? What's the who's the driving force in having Integris have such a position that way?
Well, from my perspective, it's Stan Hupfeld. I mean, he has been the leader of this organization for more than 20 years, and he certainly does embrace all of these ideas, and he's constantly pushing us to do more in terms of prevention, and also in community relations. We are part of the community, so we want to make sure that our presence there is felt and that we're doing the kinds of things that are beneficial to our community as well.
Yeah, both Oklahoma City and Tulsa have been pretty proactive about trying to get a healthier community. Tulsa is probably ahead of Oklahoma City in getting the bike paths and things like that. Oklahoma City's got a lot of things funded in the pipeline. But at the end of the day, you're not going to get at obesity unless you realize it's how much you eat and it's what you eat.
Exactly.
And how is getting that message to penetrate? Because a lot of times I feel like when we're talking about obesity, we're afraid of insulting people.
Yeah.
We're afraid of people being sensitive about, because it's kind of about how they look. But if we're overly sensitive to those types of issues, we're really not going to help them feel better and live longer.
Exactly. And we're not trying to get people to absolutely discard everything that they've ever eaten. It's just eating things in moderation. Also moving around a little bit. We have got to become more active, and it's very difficult to lose weight even if you reduce the amount of weight you eat if you don't exercise. So we want people to begin to understand that there is a combination here of exercise as well as moderate diet. Also, some of the things that we have been offered, dessert at every meal. That was always a luxury for me when we were growing up. But now we're seeing that that's part of the everyday diet. We're not getting the freshest foods in the world, and in some communities there aren't the kinds of grocery stores that provide the best, freshest food. So we need to make sure we're focusing on those things as well.
Well, we have a pretty, pardon the pun, I guess, healthy prognosis for this, though, don't we? And some of these traits that we hope people will acquire may be instilled at a young age. And the schools seem to me to be doing a much better job than they were when I went to school, and perhaps others, on taking care of the vending machines, taking care of the lunches, being more healthy. And if these kids get this kind of training at a young age, they may perpetuate that into older years and avoid some of these problems.
Exactly, and we believe that as well. And one of the things that has come out of this is that we understand that the research that has gone to show us exactly the correlation between what we're eating and the kinds of diseases that we're contracting. So that information in and of itself has been important to us. And the other thing that we want to make sure people do, and particularly children, is that as we move forward, they have an understanding of what goes into them and how it affects the diseases that they may have, and just because we have all this information now, they can live a healthier life.
What involvement does State Farm Insurance have in your program?
State Farm Insurance has a national campaign that they have actually done in conjunction with another television network in this country. It's a 50 million pound challenge with Dr. Ian Smith. And because they had the campaign, we asked them if we could join with them, and they were elated. And just as the mayor's campaign, we think that if we can continue to just bring all of these ideas and programs into one arena, if you will, that we can see a really huge impact in the weight reduction we're after, and consequently in the burden of chronic disease.
The mayor's program is a 1 million pound challenge, weight loss, at least.
That's right.
1 million. Not, I'm sure you'd take more than 1 million, but
Well, we certainly, you know, and if the program's working, there's no sense on ever ending it, I suppose.
yeah.
And it'll take a while, especially if we're talking about documenting it on the website. But you know, what's really important is not the total pounds, it's not the distance you travel in this, it's the direction you turn. And in this community, we have not prioritized health. And to the extent that we can kind of raise awareness of it and say, you know what, we can do better than this. Why do we have high standards in so many other things in the city except us?
Exactly.
It just seems fairly silly. And you look at the next generation, it's not going to get better on its own. We're going to have to do this and take personal responsibility for it.
And I think we will. That's Oklahoma way, isn't it? And I think that the challenge is just the first step in a healthier Oklahoma. And I think we're going to see that everybody's going to fall into line because, you know, we have a good state here and people who want to do the right thing.
Well, if you could send a message today, which you are sending, by the way, to a lot of people out in our communities, principally Oklahoma City and Tulsa, but certainly broader than that, what would it be? What would you, if you had a single thing to impart to these viewers, what would it be?
Well, I think the most important thing is that quality of life can be accomplished and achieved if we do those things to prevent disease. And if we got disease, then if we manage it properly. And that means, you know, if you're diagnosed with diabetes, there are certain things that you need to do, is to cut back on the kinds of food you eat, exercise more. And I think that's the message that we want to send out, is that we want our community to be healthy, whole, and have a quality of life that's comparable to none.
And we're going to have to make that the final word. Zora Brown, thank you for coming in and being a
Thank
part of our
you.
show.
Thank you, Zora.
Thank you very much.
Kent and I'll have a final word after this.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
We are back, wrapping up a show with Zora Brown of Integris Health. We talked about a number of weight-related issues, and we have some website information, a little bit more than usual. First of all, if you'd like to go to the city's weight loss effort, is thiscityisgoingonadiet.com, and you'll see that 16,000 people, Kent, have signed up, and we've lost almost, between 40 and 50,000 pounds.
You haven't been doing it very long either.
No, we've not, just since the first of the year. And I'm afraid the Earth might go off its axis if we lose too much weight. So we're going to do it slowly so we don't throw off the hemispheres. Also, you can get more information about Zora Brown at integrishealth.com. That's integrishealth.com, and learn more about their weight loss challenge. And as always, go to our website and where you can check in and give us an idea about a show you'd like to see right here on The Verdict. That address is theverdict.tv. For Kent Myers, I'm Mick Cornett. We'll see you next week on The Verdict.
The preceding program was produced exclusively for the Cox Channel.